Hello, this is Mark Silverman, managing member and founder of Silverman & Associates, and I'm also a certified financial planner professional. I want to welcome you to the Saving with Silverman podcast. I'm glad you're here. Each week, we'll discuss different financial planning topics because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Welcome to Saving with Silverman, the radio show that Mark Silverman does every week to help you get acquainted, and you can come in and talk with your certified financial planner professional, the founder and managing member of Silverman & Associates in Tucson. And Mark, first of all, is good to be back with you.
Always happy to be here, Ron. Looking forward to another great show.
This is Ron Stutz, and I will learn a lot today as well from Mark Silverman, always do. If you'd like to get in touch and arrange a time to come in and have a conversation face-to-face, not on the radio, but face-to-face in Mark's office, 520-333-7601. Call that number, or you can send a text to that number if you prefer. 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. Mark, let's open up today's show by talking about getting lost. And I'm wondering, have you ever gotten lost?
Admittingly, yes, I have. So
it's not a whole lot of fun, is it?
Well, nowadays it's kind of hard to have that excuse with with GPS and those sorts of things in our vehicles.
Well, getting lost in the car or in the woods is a lot like getting lost in your retirement planning. I don't know how many people out there have actually thought about it like that, but it's true. I thought today we could look at the reasons that people get lost and then how they might be able to get back on track. First of all, I suppose you could get lost if you have bad tools. Maybe you have tried to do stuff on your own. Maybe you have an advisor who's given you the wrong tools. And what do you have to say about that, Mark?
Well, you've got to have the right tools. I mean, certainly. And for most people, there are some things online that can kind of serve as a guide, but knowing how to use those tools and making sure you're using the right tools is really always the challenge. It's kind of like a doctor. You go to a doctor to get a diagnosis, and certainly you can go online and do the WebMD thing and look at symptoms and that sort of thing, but really to get a diagnosis to make sure you're taking care of the issue the proper way and not doing something that's going to harm you is what's most important. And the same thing comes true with financial planning. I think it's important that you make sure that you're getting accurate information, and where that information is coming from obviously is important, and you want to make sure that you're doing the best job you can because you got to get this right. And I've said this before, but second to your health, your wealth is probably the second most important thing. So you want to make sure you get it right because you don't want to be forced into working longer or taking a big chance and losing money that you could have protected yourself from by not knowing what you're doing.
Okay, so that, of course, in life, having bad tools to get somewhere, you have a map that doesn't read correctly, or in retirement planning, same thing. You can get lost very easily. How about bad directions? I mean, sometimes you can just get incorrect directions, and they can throw you off in a really big way.
Sure. And some people are given information and maybe it's incorrect. I'll have people come in and say, well, I need to have $1 million for, saved before I retire. Maybe not. And in some cases, depending on what age you're retiring and how much you need to retire on, in a lot of cases, the numbers that we run for people, $1 million isn't enough, unfortunately. We really need to know what those numbers really look like, based on what age you're going to retire, what's your life expectancy, how much you're going to need for you and your spouse if you're married in retirement. And sometimes those numbers could be multiple millions. So each plan is different, but you really need to know what your number is and then kind of work the numbers from there. And so having just a round number that everybody needs to retire is really not accurate because of the fact that everybody's situation is different.
How about not paying attention? You can get in real trouble there if you're riding down the road and you're not paying attention and you miss your exit. And the same thing goes for your financial planning.
And unfortunately, a lot of people are in that boat. A lot of people who, kind of get a late start, and I'm not, pointing the finger if that's you listening, but I think it's important that, a lot of people aren't really focused on saving. And maybe if you did get a late start, you have a lot of catching up to do. But with that being said, a lot of people have accumulated assets and put money into different things and really haven't paid attention to where it's allocated and how it's allocated. And so it's important that you have somebody that can look at everything that you have as one complete whole and see how they all work together and see if they are going to help you achieve your goals. And if not, what needs to be done in order to get to that point. But you really need to sit down and have somebody look at everything all together. I think that's what's important. And then if you're in the habit of saving and you've gotten into that habit, earlier in life, that's a good thing. And hopefully you've saved enough and it's more of a matter of allocating it properly. If you haven't done that, then I think it's important that you have somebody that can really, again, look at all the different pieces and tell you how much you need to start saving now in order to get you where you need to be. And if you're not going to be where you need to be, you need to know that now. And so you can make those changes and decide what you want to do in the future.
Certainly it's easy to get lost. You got to pay attention, that's for sure. You have to have the right tools. You have to have the right directions. 520-333-7601 is your number to call or text to get in touch with Mark Silverman, 520-333-7601. You might also check out savingwithsilverman.com. That is Mark Silverman's website, savingwithsilverman.com. And again, that phone number is 520-333-7601. Let's flip that coin over to the other side now and talk about how to get back on track. I guess the first thing you need to do is to determine where you are and then go from there.
That is correct. So you got to know where you are. And unfortunately, most people don't know where they are when we talk about financial planning. They know what age they are, but they don't know, if they're on track or not on track. And that's why we have people come into the office so we can discuss that and see where you are and have somebody evaluate where you are. But again, going from point A to point B is important, but we've got to analyze where you are and where it is you want to go so we can determine if you're on track or what needs to be done to get you back on track. Because some people are on track and don't know it, and some people are off track and don't know that either. So again, it's really understanding all the different variables and things that are out there regarding your financial future that you need to consider. And we can help with those sorts of things by letting you know and seeing, having worked with so many different people, where you are, where you need to be, and what things you need to look out for, one thing, and things you may be aware of, and things, again, that you may not be aware of. So it's really understanding all those sorts of things and making sure that you have a plan. And quite honestly, don't feel bad. Most people don't have a plan. Very few people come into the office and have a plan. Even if they've been working with an advisor for years, chances are they've probably just been sold products that really haven't solved the issue or answered their questions. And that's why we take a different approach to this than most advisors out there.
Not only are you going to have to determine where you are, but to also decide where you want to go. You don't just strike out nilly-willy and try to go somewhere on vacation, for example, without having a destination in mind. Same goes for your retirement planning.
Exactly. So the destination is the key. And so destination for some people is retirement. And for some people, it might not be retirement. And then we work with all sorts of different people. And some people want to be fully retired, meaning they're not working. Some people want what we call work optional lifestyle, working because you want to, not because you have to. Maybe at some point you decide you want to slow down. You want to continue doing what you're doing, but at a lower pace. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. Other people want to do something totally different. Some people don't want to do anything at all. So everybody has a different vision of retirement. And sometimes retirement can be considered a negative word. I can tell you from my own personal experience, I truly enjoy helping people. I truly love what I do. And I don't ever see myself completely retiring. I might slow down at some point, but I don't think I'll ever walk away from what I'm doing unless I, mentally can't do what I'm doing anymore. So there's certainly nothing wrong with that. And a lot of other people feel that way too. And there's other people that want to be done. They want to go do something different or want to travel or spend time with children, grandchildren, et cetera. And so everybody has a different vision, and it's important to understand what your vision is and what you need to do in order to get there. And that's where we can really add some value.
Mark, I know one of the hardest things for some people out there is getting help. I mean, they don't want to ask anybody for help. Maybe they've been trying to do this, put together this thing all along, all by themselves, or maybe they have had an advisor who didn't give them good advice. But get help, reach out, and get in touch with Mark Silverman, right?
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. I can tell you, Ron, the biggest thing that we see with people, we have people call or text. Some people have heard me, this is the first time. Some people have heard me for years. The biggest thing that we're fighting is procrastination. And so certainly right now it's easy to procrastinate because we have the holidays, New Year, and you can just say, well, let's do it next year. But then next year comes and never happens. So people procrastinate, and the same thing comes true here. We try to give you advice, general advice. It's not specific advice because we don't know your situation. But I can tell you, coming in and having a conversation with me or with anybody that at least gets you started in this process to help you get on the right track is important. And people, again, try to procrastinate too much. And I get that. some of this stuff isn't fun that we're talking about. Some of it might not be interesting to you, but I think it's important that you make sure that you're doing all that you can, not just for you, but for your family. And so, making the call and getting serious about this is the first step. And we encourage that.
There's a listener out there right now, Mark, who's thinking about getting serious and going ahead and they're going to stop procrastinating and call you. What happens when they come into your office?
Well, Ron, again, whether you're a first-time listener to the show, you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your opportunity to come in and have a conversation with me. I don't pawn you off on anybody else here in my office in Tucson to go through this process we call the financial physical. I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. This is far different than some of the other shows here on the radio station here in Tucson. Rather, we're going to discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So again, whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interests at all times. And I can tell you, if you're working with somebody with a bank or brokerage firm, an insurance salesperson, they do not have a fiduciary responsibility on all of your assets. And as part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have any, insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets. And we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be. So you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. This will become the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one locally here on the radio in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. That is your number to call, or send a text to that number. Doesn't matter, whichever is easier for you. 520-333-7601. Just leave Mark your contact information, and he will get back with you first part of the week and come in and have a conversation about your situation with no obligation and no cost involved at all. 520-333-7601 is your number to reach Silverman and Associates in Tucson. Wherever you are in southern Arizona, go ahead and make that call. Don't procrastinate. It's the worst thing that can happen. Mark Silverman and I will be back in just a moment with more on today's edition of Saving with Silverman.
Life is complicated. It's full of twists and turns and complex issues. The last things you need when planning your financial future are confusing numbers and advisors who just offer you a sales pitch. We believe there's a simpler way to invest. Your financial plan should be built on a plan that's made just for you. It's all about discovering your goals and designing a strategy that will help you get where you want to go. And don't worry, we'll track your progress along the way. Stop wandering your way through your investing life. Come in for a visit today. To schedule a visit, call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
You've got questions. We've got answers. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. I'm Ron Stutz, along with Mark Silverman. You are a certified financial planner professional, the founder and managing member of Silverman and Associates. His office is in Tucson, and he can provide to you the financial physical. Just like you go to a doctor on a regular basis and have yourself checked out physically, Mark Silverman can check you out fiscally without any obligation at all. You can make this phone call, 520-333-7601. Call or send a text to that number, 520-333-7601. These days, a lot of people prefer to text. Doesn't matter. Just leave your contact information, and a member of Mark's team will get back with you, and you can come in and have a conversation with Mark face-to-face. 520-333-7601. Back to our radio show today. Let's talk about some financial truths. I thought we can discuss some financial truths that we can state with absolute confidence. And one of those is very easy to pick out. Mark, TV can sometimes be your biggest enemy.
I would say that's true, and even radio, even though this is a radio show.
Yeah.
I'd say anybody that's giving you recommendations without knowing your situation, it'd be like a doctor giving you a diagnosis without asking you questions, or giving you a diagnosis over the TV or over radio. They can't know your situation. How can they give you advice? And the same thing is true here. In fact, I've heard, I won't mention the names, but there are a couple radio shows here in town that I've heard where they're actually recommending you buy products without obviously knowing who's listening to the show. And I think that's I know it's a huge mistake. So again, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. We try to give general advice here, but again, you shouldn't apply it to your situation unless we know more. So that's really where you come in, and we can really try to help you. But with that being said, I think, you have to understand the perspective of who's speaking. If somebody's trying to sell you annuities, and if they're only insurance licensed, well, obviously they're going to recommend annuities and nothing else, because that's what they're trying to do. Same thing is true with the broker trying to recommend, talking bad about annuities and trying to recommend, mutual funds or whatever it might be. You need somebody that can not have a bias one way or the other, that works with all different types of investments and really takes the time to ask lots of questions before they make recommendations to you. So you need to understand that, if you're watching TV and you're listening to CNBC or whatever it might be, you need to understand the perspective of what they're trying to do. And a lot of times they're there it's for entertainment purposes, which I wouldn't use for your own portfolio or go off what they're trying to tell you to do.
Well, following along on that same train of thought there, Mark can give you lots of good generic advice here on the radio, but can't really get specific without knowing more about your situation. That is why it's so important to go ahead and make that phone call and come in and have a conversation. Then you can get specific with the information that you provide Mark. He can ask you some very specific questions, and then and only then can you get into a position where you might be able to get some really good specific advice. Another thing that you need to always remember, another financial truth here, is that emotions are rarely your friend when making financial decisions. We talk a lot about how you shouldn't make any important financial decisions when you're in a very emotional state, no matter what the reason for that is.
That's exactly right, Ron. I mean, emotions is one of the best things that an advisor can do is walk you through these and kind of walk you off the ledge or talk you off the ledge, I guess it would be, to make sure you don't do something that's irrational, that's not going to be in your best interest. And that's one of the biggest problems with people doing it themselves, is not so much that they're picking the wrong investments, but really getting in and out at the wrong times. And so there's been a lot of studies that have done, and one of the studies, I think it's Dalbar, that came out, and they come out every year with a different one. But if you look at what the average return of a stock mutual fund is versus the average return that an investor gets invested in that same mutual fund, it's a significant difference, again, because it's timing. People get in and out and make irrational decisions. We all know the adage, buy low, sell high, but if we look at human nature, the actual opposite is true. So it's important that you work with someone who can help you stay focused on your goals, investing in the right things, but also the key is to maintain and stay in those investments and make changes when you should be making changes, not when you look at the market or you see something on CNBC or you see something, a news alert comes on your phone and you call and get out of an investment when you really shouldn't have, or get in, whatever it might be. So again, you need somebody that's going to keep you emotionally out of making rash decisions. And I think that's one of the biggest things a qualified advisor can do is keep you invested at the right times.
You're listening to Saving with Silverman with the one and only Mark Silverman. 520-333-7601. Your number to call or text, 520-333-7601. We're talking about some absolute truths, things that are financial truths that you can kind of take for granted. And Mark, you know that old song by Blood, Sweat, and Tears, "What goes up must come down, spinning wheel."
I've heard that song.
Sort of the way it is in the market. I mean, everybody, thinks things are going great right now, and people are always asking you, I'm sure, when is the stock market going to crash? Well, certainly you don't know when, but it's going to go down at some point. The market always moves in cycles, right?
It does. And I've said this before, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, but this is the second longest bull market we've ever been in. And so with that being said, logic will tell you that we are due for something. I don't think it'll be this year. since we're so close, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be next year or the year after. And I think people really need to understand that. And depending on where you are, if you're already retired, it's something you definitely need to be paying attention to. But if you're even a few years away from retirement, it's something you want to pay attention to. If you're 10, 20, 30 years away from retirement, I wouldn't be as concerned, as long as you stay invested, kind of like what we just mentioned earlier. But again, you got to understand the cycles. And so the market's correct on average about every 5 years. We're going into just over 9 years now. So I think it's important that you understand that. And not to scare anybody, but I can tell you, because I don't have a crystal ball, we are one day closer to correction every day. And so it's important that you understand that.
Mark, I know you meet with new folks all the time who really have no idea what kind of risk is inside their portfolios. And the bottom line is that most people probably aren't as risk tolerant as they think they are.
Well, again, this kind of goes back to my earlier statement, but when we're in this cycle where we're going on, just over 9 years of this bull market, we tend to see people taking a lot more chance. Risk is not a problem for people when the market's going up. Risk is only a problem when the market goes down. And the more risk, the more reward. And so with that being said, greed has kind of really stepped in and everybody wants a piece of the action, if you will. So with that being said, about 80%, we have a process that we have where we can actually understand somebody's risk. We use an online tool to understand risk, and we're very accurate with that. We can actually take somebody's accounts and plug it into the software and show them, here's how you've answered the questions. This is your comfort level, if you will. Here's how much risk you're currently taking with your portfolio. We can actually back test it and show them, if we were to have another financial crisis, which was, late 07 to early 09, here's how much you would stand to lose. Are you okay with that? Yes or no, and really understand that. And so that exercise really helps people. But what we found is about 80% of the time that we've done these, people are taking a lot more risk than they thought they were taking. And so it's important that you understand this, and so you can make a decision whether or not you're allocated properly. Because again, you're not going to be able to time the market. Once we start having a correction or whenever it is, it's going to be too late. So you really need to be proactive in making sure you're taking the right amount of risk at all times.
When you come in to talk with Mark Silverman, the advice that he may end up giving you as he assesses your situation is based on his experience, a vast amount of knowledge that he's been acquired from doing this for a very long time. It is not based on having a crystal ball and knowing exactly what's going to happen and knowing exactly what the magic formula is for you to succeed. When you get down to it, there is no magic bullet.
There is no magic bullet. I mean, you just need somebody that's qualified, like you said, Ron, that's been doing this a long time. In my opinion, you want somebody that's a certified financial planner. It's not required, but it's probably the best designation in what we do as far as somebody that knows about all different types of investment, retirement planning, investment planning, insurance, company benefits, health insurance. I mean, somebody that's very well-rounded with all these different parts in somebody's life and how somebody that can put all the pieces together for you. But again, it's really asking the right questions, having the knowledge to put a plan together rather than just, we call ourselves financial advisors, but in effect, most financial advisors, and this is just my opinion, you may relate or you may not relate, are really financial salespeople. They're not really there to advise. They're there to sell a product. And unfortunately, that doesn't serve people's problems. And when I started in this business over 20 years ago, I can tell you I was trained to be a salesperson. And I don't think that, again, that serves people well. So I really try to focus on advice, accountability, on the planning. And I think that's what people want. And that's what people need. And so, again, there's no silver bullet like you just mentioned, Ron, but there is a process that people need to follow in order to get those sorts of answers that they're looking for. And I feel that most advisors, again, aren't there to solve problems. They're there to sell products, which may or may not help your situation.
If you'd like to get the financial physical that Mark Silverman has to offer, get a reassessment, maybe get a second opinion. Maybe you're working with an advisor already and you just want a second opinion. You can certainly do that. What happens when a person goes ahead and makes that phone call and arranges a time to come in and sit down face to face and have a talk?
Well, Ron, just like I mentioned earlier, just like you get a second opinion on your health, why wouldn't you get a second opinion on your wealth? So again, whether you're do-it-yourself or already working with someone, this is now your chance to go through this process. As Ron mentioned, we call the financial physical. Do you know what your investments are costing you? If you're still working, are you on track to have the type of retirement you've always envisioned? Or if you're already retired, do you know if you or your spouse are at risk of running out of money while trying to maintain your current lifestyle? I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. In this initial meeting, We are going to address issues of importance to you, provide an overall view of your situation, and give you some general advice on what needs to be completed. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So again, whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who is actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware by now, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one locally here on the radio in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP, such as myself, can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. Just as you want to reach a healthy life from a physical standpoint, you also want to reach and maintain great financial health. So our financial physical is just what the doctor ordered. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots fill up quickly, so I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Why not go ahead and call that number right now, or send a text to that number. Leave your contact information, and a member of Mark's team will get back with you first part of the week. You can come in and have a conversation about all these things as it relates to your situation. There is no cookie-cutter solution when it comes to retirement planning. What's right for you may not be right for your brother-in-law or your neighbor or your co-worker. You are an individual, and you have an individual situation for sure. 520-333-7601 is your number to call or text to get on the calendar with your certified financial planner professional, founder and the managing member of Silverman and Associates in Tucson. And again, Mark Silverman is here, and we'll have more coming up on today's show. Saving with Silverman in a moment.
It's time to get to know Mark Silverman just a little bit better here on Saving with Silverman.
You're listening to Saving with Silverman. I'm Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman. And one of my favorite parts of the show, because it allows us to peel away the layers of Mark Silverman's multifaceted personality. And this is our Getting to Know You segment. And Mark, if you don't mind sharing this information about you to everybody out there, what does your morning routine look like?
Oh, okay. I wake up early. I usually will exercise, and then I will start waking my daughter up. She's going to be 13, so waking her up is a challenge. So I'll start trying to wake her up and get her going. Then I usually start getting ready, get something to eat, and then continue getting my daughter ready for school. And then I drop her off at school on my way to the office. Mm-hmm. So
sometimes getting her up and going is the most difficult part of the morning, I'm sure.
It is. So it's, I think the exercise is probably one of the key things as far as routine is getting it out of the way in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Helps a lot.
Well, good for you. That sounds like a good routine. And,
yes, it seems to work.
There you have it, folks. Getting to know you, Mark Silverman. Of course, Silverman and Associates is where you'll find Mark during most of his waking hours. And we'll have more coming up on today's show, Saving with Silverman, in just a moment.
At Silverman and Associates, we believe you deserve a financial plan that's customized to your situation. That's because no one strategy could possibly fit your unique needs and goals. From strategizing to execution, our goal is to give you undivided attention. Come in for a visit today and learn what it looks like to put your retirement dreams into action. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
You finished school and worked hard to get your first job. You told yourself you'd save for retirement, but that old jalopy you bought when you were 16 broke down, so you bought a new one. You started to save, and soon you bought your first home. Then came pets, kids, and your world changed some more. You worked hard to provide for your family. You made sure your kids got a good education. You might be sending them to school right now, or maybe it's the grandkids' turn. And of course, you're now making sure your parents are looked after. Through the years you lovingly sacrificed for your family, now it's time to take care of you. Love others well by taking care of yourself. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman to discover how to build a financial plan that'll continue providing for you and the ones you love for years to come.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. I'm Ron Stutz, and I have the pleasure of being on the show today with Mark Silverman, certified financial planner professional at Silverman and Associates. And Mark's been doing this for a very long time, helping many individuals and couples and families, and certainly can help you. But first, you have to reach out with that phone call, 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. Call, or you can text if you like, 520-333-7601. That'll put you through to Silverman and Associates, and pretty soon you can be sitting in Mark's office having a conversation about your situation. No obligation and no cost. Mark, let's talk about the different stages of retirement planning, and let's start with people who are, let's say, 15 years away from retirement. So for most people, that's probably, around the age of 50 or maybe early 50s. What are the main financial issues that one ought to focus on in retirement planning at this stage?
I think at this stage, you want to make sure you're maximizing all your contributions. If you have 401ks, making sure you're at least getting the match. And if you don't have a match, you still want to be maximizing your contributions. If you don't have a company retirement plan, making sure that you're maximizing IRAs, Roth IRAs, if you're eligible, just making sure you're putting as much money away as possible, because of the fact you're probably looking at a 30 plus, maybe even a 40 plus retirement. And so it's going to require a lot of money to get you, and if you're married, you and your spouse, through those things. You probably want to, look at the risks that you're taking, make sure you're allocated properly. But I would say more importantly is making sure that you're putting as much money away as possible so you can do all the things in retirement that you are setting out to do.
Okay. How about for the folks who are a little closer to retirement? Now, let's say 10 years out from retirement. How should the focus change at that point?
Well, again, you want to look at the risks that you're taking. I think that's important. It's probably more important now than it would be 15 years out. Looking at what type of guaranteed income sources you're going to have. Look at Social Security, going online to SSA.gov and getting a benefit statement to see what you might be looking at there. What's the best strategy for taking Social Security? We have software that we use here in the office that can actually show you how to maximize Social Security. There's a lot of stuff out there, but we have software, like I said, that can help you with that decision. And then, if you're lucky enough to have a pension, what are the benefits there? Do you take it on just you? Do you take it on you with a survivor benefit for maybe your spouse? There's different options there, looking at those sorts of things. What are you going to do medical care wise? Are you looking at long-term care, health insurance? What are the options there in order to get you through Medicare? If you're going to be able to take it at 65, if you're retiring before that, what's the strategy going to be there as well? Because you're getting closer, so you want to start looking at those sorts of things.
Okay, we've talked about folks and what they should do when they're, let's say, 15 years away from retirement, and we've talked about what you should do when you're just 10 years away from retirement. What about the folks who are getting closer and closer now, probably 60 years old, kind of depending on your individual circumstance, what that number will be. So 60 years of age, give or take a few years, 5 years away from retirement. What are the main things to consider at that stage of your life?
Now you're getting close. So now the risk is very, very important because, like I said, if we have a correction in the next, say, 1 to 3, 4 years, that could have a severe impact on your retirement if you're very close to retirement. I'd say 5 years is. So you want to assess the risk that you're taking, what's your downside exposure. I'm not saying you want to get out of the markets, but what you want to do is understand how much exposure you do have. And as I mentioned earlier, we have software we can actually back test and show you where you're at versus where your comfort level is. And you want to certainly be looking at if there's pensions, what are those benefits looking like? You certainly want to have a good idea as far as Social Security, what you're eligible for, how to maximize that. And we have, again, software to help with that as well. But really understanding how much income you're going to need, what's the healthcare situation, what's your strategy for long-term care. I think there's lots of different things as you get to this point. This is really where you need to at least have some type of plan. If you haven't started a plan, then you want to get a plan as soon as possible so you know where you're going and that you're right on, if you're going to be on track for what you're planning on doing, because you still have a few years to make those changes. The problem is if you wait too long, then unfortunately, then you don't have as many options, quite honestly.
We're going to talk about a couple of other stages of life in just a moment, but I wanted to give you that phone number that's so important, 520-333-7601. You can call that number, or you can simply send a text to that number if you prefer that, 520-333-7601. Just leave your contact information, voicemail if you're calling, text message if you're texting, 520-333-7601. Include your contact information, and a member of the team will get back with you, and you can come in and have a conversation with Mark Silverman. You've heard him on the radio for a long time, probably, if you've been listening for a while, and you can come in and meet Mark in person and sit down and have a no-obligation conversation. We'll give you that number again in just a few minutes here. But let me just say that we're moving toward retirement. The last one we talked about is when you're 5 years out. Mark, what about you are there? You are on the day that you retire. What are the absolutely essential things that you need to figure it out already at that point?
Well, hopefully you've done a plan or you have some type of strategy. And I don't want to discourage anybody, but I can name a couple plans we've done this year where people literally were right before they retired within a week or so, even within a couple days. Mm-hmm. So hopefully everything works out, and that's kind of the challenge. But hopefully you've done some planning in advance and you know where these benefits are coming from, Social Security, pensions if you have them, where the income's going to be coming from, making sure that income's increasing to cover inflation. You know, you have the healthcare situation squared away as far as what your options are there, how you're going to be covered. You know, you have a long-term care strategy, you know, making sure the risk is appropriate, because even though the markets will come back if we have a correction, if you are drawing off those assets, when it does come back, you don't have as much money invested in those. So that could be a double-edged sword, if you will. So again, I don't want to discourage anybody from reaching out if you're at this place and you're just getting ready to retire, but hopefully you've done some planning in advance. If you haven't, you know, give us a call as soon as possible so we can make sure all the numbers work out and making sure that you're going to be able to stay retired if that's what you choose to do.
Okay, let's talk to those folks who maybe are already retired, maybe 5 years ago they retired, or maybe even 10 years. What becomes the main area of focus now? Again,
you know, you probably already have the healthcare situation squared away. You're probably on Medicare, and so you have a good supplement, hopefully, that sort of thing. But I think what it comes down to is managing the risk, managing the income, and managing the liquidity, making sure that that income is increasing as well to cover inflation. You also need a long-term care strategy. And I think one of the challenges we see is, you know, what's the strategy going to be? If one person needs to go in, you know, how are you going to pay for that? Is it going to devastate the other person? And I think the other thing you want to think about is the income. Because if you're both getting Social Security and something happens to one of you, the other person, you're going to be short one of the Social Security. So we need to replace that income. And that happens for a lot of times where we need to think that out clearly. Or if there's a pension involved, what's that going to look like? Is that going to continue on for the spouse or not? So I think it's important that you have that under control. What I can tell you is we've done several plans for people this year where they've already been retired to make sure that they're, you know, living within their means and they're not spending too much. And we actually had a case first half of this year where we did it for somebody, and they kind of had an idea what they were spending and they thought maybe they had been spending too much. And we actually showed them that if they continued on this pace, they were in their mid-70s, that in their early 80s, they were going to run out of money. So we were able to make some changes and get things adjusted to where that the money was going to last the rest of their lives. So planning is important for people that are retired as well. So I encourage that too.
Certainly. I know that there are lots of folks in every one of those stages, folks who are maybe 15 years out from retirement and going all the way, running the gamut all the way to people who've been retired for a while, and they want to make that phone call and go ahead and get in touch with you, Mark Silverman. What do you have to offer those folks who do make the call and come in to see you?
Sure, Ron. You know, and yeah, I hear procrastination is going to be a big thing right now because of the fact that there's always a lot of excuses around the holidays and the new year and that sort of thing. But again, whether you're a first-time listener to the show, you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your opportunity to come in and have a conversation with me in my office to go through this process we call the financial physical. And I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. In fact, if you do call us, we're probably going to be scheduling towards the end of this month anyways, and a lot of people are going to be probably into January, so you want to get on the calendar now. Rather, we're going to discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So again, whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interests at all times. And as part of the Financial Physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have any, insurance, all the different types, and how to best allocate your assets. And we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. This will become the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as I'm sure you are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one locally here on the radio in Tucson, and the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. This is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way, and your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone, however our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 5 people that contact us right now. And like I said, we are booking people in January at this point. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. You can call or text 520-333-7601. That number will put you in touch with Mark Silverman at Silverman & Associates. This program is called Saving with Silverman, and Mark can certainly save you in a lot of ways, save you from making some mistakes, help make sure that you can optimize all your opportunities when it comes to your retirement planning. The main thing is to have a plan, and Mark Silverman can certainly help you do that. 520-333-7601. Mark Silverman at Silverman & Associates in Tucson. We'll have more coming up in just a moment.
If you've ever asked yourself what a well-balanced financial portfolio looks like, keep listening to Saving with Silverman, and you'll find out.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. Ron Stutz here along with Mark Silverman at Silverman & Associates. 520-333-7601. 520-333-7601. Call or text. We're glad you're listening today. We have some great questions that have come in on the request line. First of all, from Helen in Green Valley. Helen says, my husband's military pension is a very nice monthly benefit, but after he dies, I don't get a penny of it. In retrospect, this was a mistake, but it's nothing that we can change now. How do we address this problem going forward?
Well, excellent question, Helen. And unfortunately, we see this quite often. Once you make these decisions, unfortunately, you're stuck with them. You can't change it. But there are some things that you could do now. There's a couple different strategies. We can look and see what the assets look like and making sure that we can create an income from that. There's also using life insurance, using pension maximization, using life insurance, where we could create a tax-free death benefit when your husband does pass, to give you some, like I said, tax-free assets that can be used to create an income or get you through those years. So there are some things you could do now, but you really need to do it sooner rather than later. And like I said, we see this quite often, because when people make these decisions, sometimes they aren't really thinking ahead and thinking through those. And that's why you want to work with someone who can kind of give you the pros and cons on making these sorts of decisions. But great question.
And certainly a lot of specifics as it relates to that situation, Helen. So hopefully you will call that number and come in and have a conversation with Mark about it. Next question here from Howard in Tucson. Howard says, I've always been told to buy low and sell high. It seems like the market is really high right now, so I guess I should be selling. But my advisor hasn't mentioned anything about that. Do you think I should just keep riding it up?
Well, it just depends on your situation, Howard. Again, what we try to do is really understand your comfort level. What's your risk number, if you will? And then the other thing is we want to look at your goals and objectives to make sure those two things are in sync. So that's really what the important thing is. And everybody has a different risk tolerance and risk preference, and lots of people call it different things. But really, what's your comfort level? And then 2, what type of investment should be appropriate based on that risk tolerance, and then looking at your goals and objectives to make sure that those returns that you would get on average are going to keep you able to achieve, basically not running out of money for everything it is you're looking to achieve. So again, it's not a decision of trying to time the market, because I think I know that that's a big mistake. Anybody that tries to time the market, it's a losing game, but it should be that your risk should match your comfort level as well as keep you on track for your goals and objectives. And if those two things are in sync, you're going to be in good shape.
All right, one more question today, Mark, and this is from Warren, who lives in Saddlebrook. And Warren says, because of a mutual friend, I have the opportunity to work with an advisor who works primarily with people who invest $5 million or more. Now, I don't have nearly that much, but I'd love to get the advice of such a big-time advisor. Would you agree this is a great opportunity for me?
Well, Warren, not necessarily, because advisors that have high minimums like that might be providing a good service to people at that asset level, and we work with people at that level as well. But what you want to consider is how much time and attention are you going to get? If somebody's going to take you on, they should be able to give you a high level of service and communication no matter what size. We don't bring clients on if we can't service them. That's just a simple rule. That's why we have an asset minimum that we ask for, because there's only one of me and I can't take on everybody. So although it might be a good opportunity if they just bring you on, but you never hear from them, is that a good relationship? In my opinion, no, because you want an advisor who's going to be in regular communication with you so they can make changes to your portfolio based on what's changing with you. Yes, they can make changes based on the market. That's not a problem, but they need to make changes based on what's changing in your situation. Are things good or bad? Is there a health issue? All these sorts of things. That's why we stay in regular communication with our clients. And if an advisor is not staying in regular communication, they can't make adjustments to your accounts if they're not regularly knowing what's going on. So they need to have regular check-ins. And unfortunately, a lot of advisors don't. So I don't know if that's such a great opportunity, but we're certainly happy to speak with you and show you that our level of service and see if it's something that would fit for you and as well as fit for us. But great question, and just my 2 cents.
Mark, we had some great questions, not only from Warren, but also from Howard and Helen today. And I know that there are other folks out there who have questions, and certainly I hope they will call in and arrange a time to come in and talk with you as well. What do you have to offer those folks who come in to get acquainted?
Sure, Ron. So we had some great questions. Now it's my chance to ask you a question. So here's a simple question, and can you answer it honestly and objectively as possible? Aside from the happy hellos and how's the family, and aside from the occasional lunch or golf game, I get it. I'm as much friends with many of my clients as well, and they become true friends over the many years. But I think the question has to be asked, especially in light of the stakes. Is your current financial advisor truly adding value beyond a doubt? I repeat, is your current financial advisor truly adding value? It's a valid question, as a friendship or just relationship allows you not to be in a position to ask those critical questions. Are you talking about taxes? Are you talking about Social Security and income and risk and diversification and insurance and estate planning and healthcare? Are you having those annual reviews? But hopefully it's more frequently than that. Is there detailed follow-up? Is there accountability? If you are, if all of that is happening, congratulations, because you've got a great relationship, and send your financial advisor a thank you. But if you're not having that, if you're not feeling the value, if you're not having these in-depth conversations, then you owe it to yourself and really to your family to have a conversation with someone else, because if you don't, you're the one that's going to suffer. You're the one that's going to pay the cost, and it'll cost you in more ways than you'll ever know. Let us prove to you how we can help your money go further in retirement. Let us show you with our financial physical. I believe you'll be surprised at what you'll learn, and this won't cost you anything. Give us a call or send us a text to 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. Or check us out online at savingwithsilverman.com. That's savingwithsilverman.com. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Again, you can call this number, 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. Call and leave a voicemail message, or text and leave a text message, 520-333-7601. Mark will get back with you at the beginning of the week, and you can come in and have a conversation sometime during the month of January. They're planning ahead now. And, of course, 520-333-7601 is your number to call or text to make that happen. Mark Silverman, of course, your certified financial planner professional, founder and managing member of Silverman & Associates in Tucson. And Mark, it's been a real pleasure being with you on the show today. Always enjoy it.
Ron, always happy to be here, and I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen. Hope you got some value from today's show. And remember, please stay safe on the roads. It's getting busy out there.
Join us again next week for another edition of Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman.
Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, product, service, or investment strategy. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified advisor, tax professional, or attorney before implementing any strategy or recommendation discussed herein.